Nu är vi
Jo, men
live.
nu känns det som att vi är
I
klar.
think we are live now.
Yes,
Yeah,
we're
let's
live.
switch over to English, eh? All right, guys. Let's do
Yes,
this.
we are live.
Live.
Is there anywhere we can see how many people are joining us?
Well,
I don't know.
pretty sure they will join from now and further. But Eric, let's start with introduction, and I'm sure the guys will see it afterward, eh?
Well, good evening, Sean. Welcome. This is the Westin Live Show, Ask the Pros. And my name is Eric Axner. I am a sea fishing guide and a tour operator for tropical sea angling and Nordic sea angling. I have been working with this for almost 10 years now. And the first years I was up in Norway as a main guide on our camps. And the latest years now I have moved back home to Sweden to do a little bit more of administration work in the office, and also started to do some tropical trips as a tour leader for tropical sea angling. And back home here, my main interests are to fish for pike, sander, and sea trout. But my heart is always banging for the ocean, for the big cods, for halibut, for the deep sea fishing, for halibut and redfish and ling and so on. Also with rays, and of course the tropical fishing, the topwater fishing for GTs, for dogtooth tunas, for yellowfin tunas, for snappers, cuberas, and of course jigging for dogtooth tuna, coral trouts, and much more. So that's me, and I will move it over to Johan Mikkelsen instead.
All right, guys. So basically, my story is pretty much the same as Eric, actually. We work at the same company in Norway, Nordic Sea Angling. I've been working there for, I don't know, ages, 10, 12 years now. And I've also started working for Tropical Sea Angling, which is basically the same company, but more tropical sea angling. Have also done some big game fishing on Azores, La Gomera, and so on, and done some also private trips around the world, basically. So popping GTs, dogtooth tunas, everything you can imagine. So yes, I'm ready for all the questions regarding your tropical trip or your sea angling in Norway, or just shoot. But first, I want to introduce you to Johan Persson Tiberg. Over to you.
All right, guys. Hi. Yeah, I'm pretty broad when it comes to fishing. I do basically everything from dry fly fishing for trout to deep sea fishing, and I've been fishing my entire life, traveling the past, I don't know, 18 years or so, also worldwide, doing a lot of tropical. Of course, it's hard to decide what's the best, so try and do it all. I mean, it's my heart is basically flats fishing in the tropics. That's my big thing. But also do spin fishing, of course, for GTs and stuff like that. But flats fishing for like bonefish, permit, tarpon, that's a big thing for me. Domestically, I do salmon, trout, sea bass, a lot of inshore sea fishing, not that much deep sea like Johan and Eric. But the inshore game is kind of my thing because I'm located in southern Norway, and it's different. It's very different. So fuck you guys.
Well, I think that is good to see that we have a wide variety of fishing techniques in the live here. That you have your thing with the flats and so on, and you also do a little bit of different kind of fishing back home in Norway, and that me and Johan, we also have a little bit of different characteristics up in Norway. Even if we enjoy all the fishing up there, I think we are slightly different what we prefer up there. So I think we're gonna have a very good mixture today.
Exactly,
Yeah, I
and
think we have
all
pretty broad experience.
and
between
all
us.
of us has been in the Westin for quite many years now. So helping Westin-Fishing to, develop tackles, rods, jigs, and so on. So it has been, this collaboration with Westin. So yeah, whatever you have any questions about the products of Westin or any tricks, just feel free, shoot questions, and all of us are happy to answer them. And I see already now there is some guys, we got some guys saying hello and nice to see you guys. And Tony's with us. That's an
Hello, Tony.
old colleague of us. Nice.
Yeah. And we have also from Turkey, I can see. Do you have any other nationalities in the live feed today? Let's see. I don't know where
nice.
this.
Swedes.
And feel free to ask any questions regarding, like Johan said, tackle or techniques, or how we locate the fishing, the fish on different spots. What we do to prepare for the trip, or just how we fish. We are more than happy to help you all.
Good vibes.
Yeah, anything from rigging gear, there you go.
Yeah, you can start.
Okay. Welcome, Andreas Agelund.
Welcome.
Nice to have you here. Which is your favorite cod color? Okay, Eric, you can start.
Oh, that is actually quite a tricky question, but I'm always been this natural color guy. I prefer these natural colors more than the bright, shiny ones, the ones with like luminous colors and so on. So I must say that I prefer this color from Westin called the Robocod, which is actually black and silver on the back, and it has a little bit of luminous on the belly. Maybe we can have it up on the screen as well from the Westin page, so everybody can see it. I think that would be my first choice.
Let's see.
We can bring out the Crazy Daisy, which is my favorite sea jig. There we
go. Yeah, this is for sure one of my favorites as well for the sea angling in Norway. So guys, if you want to have one lure to fish in Norway with, this is the one. Crazy Daisy 400 gram. That works basically for everything. Eh?
Yeah, let's see here. And I think this will be this is my favorite one, definitely the Robocod. Yeah. And that is the perfect imitation of a small cold fish, but it also has a little bit of luminous, which stands out from all the other cold fish. Because in general, when you target the big cods, you prefer to target them close to the bait fish. And if you have a too natural color without this luminous parts, I don't think it would work that good. But since you have this small little luminous part, it stands out from the others, and the cods really seem to like it a lot. And in my opinion, I really prefer this paddle tail version as it comes pre-rigged in the package for the cods, because then you get a slower presentation when the jig is falling towards the bottom than you do with the curly tail. And you send out a little bit more vibrations, which also is very good when you're fishing close to a lot of bait fish, so they can really find your shad. But now I'm very interested in your favorite, John Mickelson.
Yes, I would say my favorite is probably also the Crazy Daisy 400 gram. Obviously, also the paddle tail that makes the most action in the water. But color-wise, I would say this rainbow, I think it's called. Yes, that's the one. That's the one. That's probably one of my go-to colors when it comes to the cod. It's kind of the same color as the Robocod. You got some luminance on the belly, but still pretty natural color. But also you got this pink head that I really like. And for the cod, really prefer the paddle tail. When it comes to halibut, on the other hand, I like the paddle tail more, the curly tail. Sorry, the curly tail more for the halibut. So that's
Yeah, I couldn't
my
agree more.
opinion. And Johan Friberg, for your favorite cod color, what's your opinion? Now you see it maybe a bit differently, but
it's very differently.
Yeah.
More shallow water, like down to maybe 30 meters,
yeah,
and lighter baits, so light
Yeah.
tackle. So
Yeah.
usually I
Mhm.
use heads of about 30 grams, and actually the normal shad teas that we use
Mhm.
for pike or perch, stuff like that,
all right.
in 8 to 12 centimeter. My favorite color is the headlight, which is also, as you guys were saying, a natural color,
Yeah.
mimicking herring. Here,
Yeah.
the cod seem to feed more on herring than on coalfish. So that's like the main thing on the menu. So mostly I use, that's the one. There it is. And if I were to use any colors, it would be orange and yellow.
Yeah.
That's also usually when it's, especially in the early winter and early spring, I catch them in the shallows on lighter stuff.
Yeah. Cool.
That's something we do besides sea trout fishing, so we pick up a cod or two on the way, kind of.
Nice.
Nice. But that's actually quite interesting what you're saying in the shallow water, that you prefer a brighter color, because I have the feeling that especially in the spring, when the fish are standing a little bit shallow, not like they do in the summer when they go out to the really deep water, but you can find them on the edge, close to the structure, close to the plants, the kelp. Then I really prefer this a little bit like darker colors, the fancy Coca-Cola, which is a very goldish color with a dark back and a very bright belly, from bright red or red orange, and that really seems to trigger them when they are standing close to the kelp. And I don't know if it mimics a crab or some other fish that lives in the kelp that they prefer to eat, but in those like situations, I really prefer this fancy Coca-Cola color instead of a natural silver one like a coalfish.
Exactly.
Yeah, it seems like maybe in more open water that they would go for more natural colors.
Yeah.
And if it's more like in confined areas, like you say in the kelp or in rocky areas, I'm not sure why they act differently, when they actually go for brighter colors, but it seems like something that stands more out, maybe.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. I agree that could also be. I mean, when you target the fish sea bass fishing.
That's the one for you.
Well,
That's the one for you.
years.
It's not me.
Yeah, thanks. Over the years, it was very good. Like 10 years ago, here in southern Norway, then it kind of declined. The population I'm not sure if it was fished out or temperature that did it, but we didn't catch anything almost in like 7 years or so. Then the sea bass started coming back like 3 years ago, and it's been pretty decent actually. Like the past 3 years, been catching from about 25 to 35 fish per season.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I haven't caught any monsters, but some guys here have caught them up to 4 kilos here in the south. Fish pushing 6-7 kilos in Western Norway, so
that's good.
Good possibilities. Yeah.
Nice.
I usually target them using soft baits and stuff like the Sandy Andy and all the one with the V-tail twin tees. That's been excellent colors. Especially the 20s
right.
is my favorite. The sandy Andy is here.
Yeah.
The 20s, I think I have it here somewhere.
But Johan, how do you use the 20s? Do
Yeah.
you use it with a normal jig head, or how do you present the 20s?
No. I got it here. Where's the goddamn camera?
You're right in it.
No, I use a screw-in head and a treble hook. So I put in the screw-in head and put on like I don't know, maybe 6 centimeters of braid, which I attached the treble hook to, and fish it, let it go to the bottom, and just pull it pretty fast up towards the surface, and let it sink on a tight line. Very often they take it right when it starts sinking again, when you rise it and it starts dropping down.
Nice.
That's been my go-to bait for about 3 years now. Since I started using it, it's been excellent. I've got many fish on it.
Nice.
And it's very durable also, so you can catch easily 20 fish on the same bait without fucking it
Nice.
That's interesting. I would have never used that kind of lure for sea bass if you didn't say that it was a good one. I would definitely have going for a lure at least with a paddle tail.
Yeah, same here. Very interesting.
Yeah. I haven't been that fond of paddle tails, to be honest. Stuff that not too violent, it seems. Like the Stanley the stickleback, the small one has been very good. When the fish are being finicky and don't really want to touch stuff, you see them following the lure and not taking it, or just touching it barely. Then I've been switching to the Stanley, and that's been has also been a killer.
All right.
Which also is not really a sea bass lure, it's a little shitty stickleback, So it seems often that it's good to mix it up, If you get the attention with a big lure and they don't really follow through, they don't attack it properly, then change to something smaller. So I would say this one and the Stanley has it's really been good on my part.
Interesting. Yeah, I never tried it, so it sounds
also
very interesting.
Of course. Do you have any sea bass at your areas?
No, we don't have anything here, but I can travel maybe halfway up to Johan, halfway to Gothenburg. There is a nuclear power plant there, which is going to shut down, but there is some warmer water leaking out or getting released into the ocean, where you can actually catch them and other fish like bonito and big sea trout too. But I have never tried it. It's on the bucket list for sure. Yeah, exactly. And around Bua. And I have never tried it. They should be very fun to catch. Everybody's saying that they are super strong and so on. So maybe I need to give it a go.
Same here, definitely.
I would say it's one of the absolutely best game fish we have in.
Nice.
So we got another question here.
How many species have you caught?
Yeah,
it's a big question.
That's a tricky question.
Oh my god.
To be honest, guys, I don't know. I don't know.
I have no idea.
I've started to log all my catches on FishBrain, but hopefully they can count the number of species one day. But right now they don't have this feature, so I don't know. But many.
Sometimes when you go on a jigging trip abroad, like for example to Madagascar, you could easily catch 20 different kind of reef species in a trip, and you don't even know what the name is because you catch so many different kind of them, and they are like hundreds of groupers down there, and you have no idea what they are called. So I have no answer to that, but I can say that it's a lot of species, both here in Sweden in fresh and saltwater, and in Norway in saltwater, and also abroad on all our other trips.
Yeah.
So that's a hard one to answer. I don't know, Johan, do you keep count?
No, I don't count. As you were saying, when you do tropical trips and stuff like that. Well, example, we were in Sudan this March. I think it was 34 or 36 different species. That was mostly on the fly. So then when you start doing jigging as well, I mean, fuck knows how much. But a lot. Personally, I have no idea, but I would guess more than 150 different. I'm guessing, at least. I mean,
at least.
No idea, but many different species.
Yeah.
We need to start counting, obviously, because.
Obviously, okay. Staffan Gustafsson, thank you for the question. We will have a better answer next time.
Oh, here's another interesting question. For sea trout, my favorite lure. That depends a little bit of the season, but where I live in the south of Sweden, spring comes quite early. The water is getting warm quite early, and the fish, they target sand eels quite quick. Already in the beginning of March, we have the sand eels all over the sandy banks. So my favorite lure is definitely the Summit 28 grams. And let's see if we can get it up on the screen here. And there is one color that's been outstanding for me over the years, and that's called the Mad to Bees. And it's quite a boring color, actually. It's olive green on the back. It's a little like, it's not very shiny, the silver part. It's just like it's almost gray with a little small red dot in the end. And that one has been so good for me. I would say that my catches since I started using this one has just hit the roof, and it works in every like weather, even if it's sunny or if it's cloudy and a lot of rain and so on. But in the early season, I prefer to use a little bit of a brighter color. But then I normally use the salty instead. But if I would only choose one, I would choose this Summit 28 in Mad to Bees for sure. I don't know. What about you guys?
I agree on the Summit, exact same as yours, actually. Only in 16 grams, because our fish are generally smaller than the ones yours are using. That one and the salty jig has been really good, especially in cold water. The salty jig in pink and 7 grams, I believe it is. And also the natural color is more, I think it's more olive-ish. It's been very good. So those are my go-to, two very different lures, really, size-wise and also the way you retrieve them. This one, the salty jig, I prefer a small travel on it, to be honest. Just a size 12. The lot rod I'm using, the W6 drop shot rod, actually, because it has a very sensitive tip and also a lot of backbone, so you can really set the and you get everything with that super light tip on the rod. So that's it's been a very good combo for me. That it's a strange rod to cast for casting. Like normally you would buy this shot, but it casts really well. It goes far and super easy to work with, especially with lures up to, let's say, 10, 12, 14 grams like that. It's excellent rod. I'm using the 1.7 to 21 grams, I believe it is. And what kind of rod are you using for sea trout fishing?
Myself using the V8, the travel rod. I think it's excellent, up to 30 gram.
Oh, that's
I've done a lot of traveling, so that rod is just perfect for me. Now it was a while that I did some sea trout fishing though, but that rod combined with like a 2500 Shimano reel and the same Summit or the Salty is one of my favorites for the sea trout. But the V8 spin rod for the sea trout is excellent. But very interesting with the rod that you recommend, Johan. It sounds, yeah, probably need to try that out as well, because I think our fishing is pretty much the same. I'm on the west coast, Gothenburg, and up to Strömstad,
yeah, exactly.
Sweden. So I guess we got a lot of sea trout, not the really big ones though. And I'm sure Eric down in the south of Sweden are similar to the Danish waters. Quite bigger, fatter sea trout and more open coast, I guess. So
yeah, exactly.
Different. Yeah.
I'm using that
ahead.
same rod as you.
Yeah.
I'm also using that 10-footer for the summit fishing when I have to go far, you know. But for more close range, that drop shot rod is just magic. Really.
Sounds good.
And you were saying, Eric?
Yeah, for the sea trout there, I'm using the 11.3 footer from 10 to 40 gram, and that's just as Johan said. We have an open coast. We need to cast very far quite often. We have windy conditions. We have a lot of waves. Then it's good to have a long rod so you can just steer your bait on top of the waves, and you can also steer the fish quite easy. And since the sea trouts down here are a little bit bigger, it's always good to have a little bit backbone as well, especially with a long cast, and you need to set the hook quite far out. But that's it. Let's leave the sea trout, and I see that we have another question here. Which rod and reel can you tip to cod and halibut, and does it run one, or is it too different to recommend? Well, I have two different combos that I always bring in the boat. I use for cod when I'm using like shads for like the Crazy Daisy or Big Bob or so on. I use the W6 jigging rod, 5.2 feet, which is quite a short rod, and that is my favorite for sure. If I go for like not for the scray fishing, but if we think about the general season, I use the 80 to 220 gram model, and that is perfect. You have great feeling in the rod. You have a lot of backbone, even if you hook up to a very big fish. It's super light. You can fish it the whole day, even with one hand. And in general, when we are out fishing, we steer the boat at the same time. And then it's very good to have a small light rod that you can maneuver with one hand while you're steering the boat at the same time. And it also provides a little bit softer action in the tip, which is great for jigging those Crazy Daisy and so on down to 100, 110, 120 meter if needed. And for the halibut, then I use the same rod if I use the shads. But if I'm using a bait fish instead and going with a halibut anti-twist rig, which is a large banana-shaped sinker, I prefer a longer rod. And I actually prefer the W6 boat version than instead in 20 to 30 pound range. And that rod has a softer action all the way down into the handle. And since I'm using this halibut anti-twist rig with a circle hook, it's really good when you get the bite and you want to really penetrate that circle hook in the corner of the mouth. That rod is a little bit softer so that the hook can actually turn in the corner of the mouth instead of with a stiff rod that it might pop out.
Yeah.
So I'm really a fan of this W6 boat rod instead for that. It also is a little bit lighter to your body, and if you're fishing a whole day and you're fishing deep and you're getting fish from far down, it's quite hard with a small stiff rod to go up and down all the time. And it's also very good if you put it in the rod holder that it has some length as well. You can just use the clicker on the reel, let the rod be, and you can see the sensitive bites far down as well in the tip of the rod. And with these rods, you have all the power that you need to catch even the biggest halibuts out there, and a fish of like 200 kilo is definitely possible to get on these rods with the right technique and a little bit of patience.
Exactly. Yeah, I can take over here and say I pretty much agree with everything you just said there, Eric. But of course, there is like one. If you only need to choose one rod, then of course there is one rod that will basically, works for every occasion, and that's probably the V6 boat. That's an excellent rod for both conditions. But as Eric is saying, is the two different rods is like the best possible way to fish up in Norway for cod and halibut, because like Eric, I like the shorter rod, the jigging rod for when I'm working the jigs, the Crazy Daisy, the Big Bob. I feel like I got more power when I'm doing the hookups with this short jigging rod. It's super strong, and I can fish the whole day with this rod. But then, as Eric said, the V6 boat rod is excellent when you're fishing with bait, and also works with the shads, of course. But those two setups is excellent rods. But I can also say another rod that I can also very highly recommend for you guys is the V4 boat. I tried that fishing rod the whole season actually, and I was super fan of this rod. It's very good value, and I tried. I caught a halibut in 193 centimeter, and actually I didn't caught it, but I helped the client to push it up, and that was on that rod. So I know it works extremely good during extremely big pressure. So if you have never been to Norway before and you want to buy your own rod for the first time, start with a V4 boat. Excellent rod. I prefer the shorter version. Let's see. I can't really see now, but that's an excellent rod as well. Otherwise, the V6 is also a very nice rod for sea angling in Norway.
And I can see that the question was also regarding a reel, and up in the north of Norway, where we go for big fish and we fish quite deep, then we prefer to have a lever drag reel for many different reasons. You have a smoother, stronger drag with a lever drag reel. You can easily adjust your drag when you're fighting a big fish. For example, a halibut that is running and doing a lot of big head shakes. You might need to adjust your drag up and down, and that is very easy with a lever drag. And you also have the advantage if you put the rod in the rod holder, taking a little break, leaving your bait down there, that you can actually adjust your drag so that it's just barely holding the sinker in the rod holder, but nothing more. So if you get a bite from that, you can easily just take the rod, adjust the brake all the way up to the strike mode, set the hook, and then start fighting your fish. Compared to when you're having a star drag reel, which you have to turn back and forth all the time, which will actually be quite hard. And it's also a lot more difficult to quickly adjust your drag up and down. So I prefer the lever drag reels for sure, and there are many good brands on the market for that. We have the Maxells, we have Daiwa, we have Shimano. There are many different ones with different gear ratio, but you should consider the high gear ratio since you're fishing quite deep. Over to you, Johan. First one, Freebie.
Well, basically the same for that type of fishing, for heavy machinery, the boat W6 boat rod with multiplier. But I've been using also been using the jigging rod, but not with the multiplier, with the regular spinning reel for shad fishing, mostly shad fishing, not so much regular jigs, but shads. Just because I like using a spinning reel. And I've been using this model also a lot for the tropical fishing, and it's been very, very, very good. Strong as shit. You can't break it if you wanted to. I've caught big sharks on it. Had runs of like huge dogtooth tunas, and that thing, it won't break. It's super, super strong. So even as you were saying, for 200 kilo halibut, that fucking thing is gonna pull it up, surely.
Oh, yeah. Super strong.
Super strong. I've been using a 14,000 Stella as a reel on that one here in Norway as well, and that's like kind of my go-to setup. But if I'm bait fishing, I would surely prefer that boat rod. As you were saying, with the more flexible tip, and it's not as violent, basically. You want something that actually the fish don't feel right away when it hits the bait. So it's gonna spit it out or pull the hook or whatever. So a more flexible rod for bait, and something solid for jigging and shad fishing. In my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, I've been using a little bit of spinning gear up in Norway as well the recent years, but instead of doing vertical style, I've been casting for halibut then instead. And it seems a little bit crazy, but I've been using this 8-footer, which is 20 to 100 grams, which is the lightest popping rod in the series there are. We're matched with a 6,000 reel and like 0.30 millimeter braid. And I thought in the beginning that I'm going to have a big problem with this, but so far I've hooked up to quite many fish around 25 to 30 kilo, which has been no problem at all. I have been in full control over those fish, even if they run a bit, but I have never felt that I have the lack of power, the lack of a backbone in the rod and so on. And I'm 100% sure that a 50 kilo or a 70 kilo fish will not be a problem with that rod either. And this rod I've been using in Panama too for Cubera snapper, and I've caught fish close to 30 kilos on this rod too. And that is a fish that you have to stop it right away. When you get a bite of it, it will go straight down into the reef. You have to palm the spool and just hold on. And this rod survived that too. And I think, well, it's a super strong rod, and it's very fun in Norway when you're fishing on quite shallow banks, 20, 30, 40 meters, and casting with 150 grams sandy Andes. And even if the rod is recommended up to 100 grams, it could easily handle 150 grams without any problems. And that's my favorite way to go for halibut nowadays, actually, because it's so much fun. Maybe it's not the best way to target the really big ones, but it's really, really fun. And it's a new way. Exactly. You catch a lot of fish. You still have a good chance of catching a big fish, since we have noticed that a lot of the big fish are actually on those sandy banks 2 feet on sand eels, and they will not grab a bigger bait just because they are there. You will catch them on the same kind of bait. And it just have a lot of patience to go through the smaller ones. But since I started spin fishing for the halibut, I've increased my catching rate a lot. I catch more and more and more fish with this technique than I do with the standard vertical style, even if the average size is lower. But it's especially when they go for sand eels on the sandy banks, and it's certain time of the year. It's not all year around that it works very well, but when they are feeding on sand eels, it's so fun, it's so effective. So if you haven't tried that, go ahead and do it. You can also use a heavy pipe
very
rod.
interesting. What kind of depths are we talking when you're casting for the halibuts on the sandbanks?
I would say that we start to cast maybe somewhere around 8 to 10 meters, but I've been doing it with great success all the way down to 40 meters. It's just that you need to resync the lure. Like when I make my cast, maybe I end up 40 meters away from the boat. I open the bail and let the bait sink all the way down to the bottom straight away on the slack line. I look at my line all the time to see if there is a bite, and it's quite often actually that you get a bite when it's sinking. And then I start to retrieve it quite quickly, rapidly through the water. And then when I make a pause, I open my bail again, let it sink a new way all the way down to the bottom. And in that way, I can keep contact with the bottom for a longer time during my my cast. And as long as you keep your eyes on the line, because a halibut is not bite, they don't bite very sensitive. You see it on the line for sure when you get a bite. And then it's just to close the bail and set the hook right away. Even if you don't feel the fish, just make a hook set and hope for the best. And that's been working very, very well, especially in depths of 25 to 40 meters when it's a little bit deeper, because otherwise you get one shot at sinking it all the way to the bottom, and then you never feel the bottom again. So you extend your cast by doing that.
Yeah, of course. How do you use stinger?
Not when the fish
on the small, not on the small jig.
On the Sandy and the 150 grams, I use it when I notice that the fish is picky. But in general, they just swallow it whole. And when they are hooked on this single hook that is connected to the head, it's barely impossible to lose them. It's just they are hooked there straight away, and then that hook is very, very strong. So I don't find the need for a stinger in many occasions.
It's very interesting. I'm gonna try this this summer. I'm going in August.
Do it. That's a good time. Yeah, August, September is a very good time for this type of fishing, for sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna try both casting and also with the fly. So I'm making some flies at the moment, actually.
Excellent, nice.
Yeah, we need to catch one on the 12 weight.
fly.
We'd like to get like a 40 kilo halibut. That's my goal for the summer.
It's really, really fun. Go for it.
I see at Anders.
You catch big ones in shallows?
Sorry, Johan. What did you say?
No, I was saying I lost it. I was looking at the question, so I lost my question.
All right.
Never mind.
Go ahead and answer that question first.
From Fish O'Holly, is there a certain lure or color, if lure, you guys would recommend for Pollock? Have you fished a lot of Pollock down there south in Norway, Johan?
Yeah, that's
all right.
Yeah, a lot.
Bring a question for you.
If I were to choose one color, it would be chartreuse, like bright chartreuse, and long jigs or long flies. More narrow. They don't like fat bait. Like I would use Sandy Andy instead of Crazy Daisy for the Pollocks.
Yeah.
Down here in the south, they eat, I'm not sure what the name in English, but some long, it looks like sand eels, but they're not. They hang out in the kelp. You guys probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. They are called, I think, exactly, kampnål.
Yeah.
I don't know the English name.
Anyway, long things. I mean, they're big
exactly.
one would be like 35 centimeters long, and so a lure can't be too long, basically, for the Pollocks, but it can be too fat. So long and thin. Yellow chartreuse, that would be my go-to color. If they're not picking that up, I would go natural, like the one on the picture here. And also size-wise, if they're not picking up the big stuff, they can be really finicky and go for small stuff such as shrimp and stuff like that. Like this rubber shrimp, that's one of my favorites actually. This one.
Oh, nice.
Johan,
Yeah,
didn't you
that's the
catch a
one.
nice Pollock in O on
I
this
actually
color?
did. I exactly on this color, this lure in O. I caught a probably personal record Pollock on this one. So
Oh,
yeah,
there you
it
go.
works.
Yeah, it works.
Yep.
And it's interesting because when fishing these salty shrimps, you can go really slow. Just like put the bait down to the bottom, rise it maybe a meter at a time, a couple of lines on the reel, and they will just suck it in, and you can barely feel the hit sometimes. And even the big fish will be really careful and just suck it in, and then you just feel the rod like slightly bending, and boom, almost like bait fishing actually.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
So yeah, I've used it in the Caribbean as well. You see that snapper on the picture there?
Oh,
Yeah.
Nice one.
Nice.
That's
cool.
a big one. Actually, it's
that is a Maori snapper.
It's a schoolmaster.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's about as big as they get. So and that was also cool. A friend of mine, he was fishing conventional lures, and I think he got 2 or 3 fish that day, and I had about 15 on that shrimp. So those
Very
things,
nice.
they look fucking silly, to be honest. When you see them, they look like something from China, you know. But they really work. So that's one of my biggest recommendations for this year, actually. Those salted shrimps.
Yeah.
So Pollock, that and Sandy Andy, and you're good to go, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree. I tried this spin fishing for Pollock the first time, like, I don't know, 15 years ago when I was studying, but then there were no jigs on the market for this, so we just used like long worm-like jigs that we rigged on a paternoster rig and just reeled straight outside the kelp. But this summer I was up in Lofoten, and we started targeting these Pollock on the closest reefs. And then, just as you said, we had much more success in the slim baits, and in general in the quite dark brownish colors. And that's probably because they were eating those kind of bait fish that we don't know the name of.
Yeah.
Even if I have my biggest Pollock on
things.
Exactly. Even though I have my biggest Pollock on a 400-gram Crazy Daisy.
No way.
Yeah. And I caught it outside O as well, but it was on this I don't know what it was called. It's this glowing one with the flames on the side.
Days of Thunder.
Exactly, the Days of Thunder. And it was actually in May, and we were out very late in the evening, and it was basically pitch dark, and we were on our way back, and we just made one last stop, and I got hit in the mid water. And we thought it was a small cod or something, and it was a Pollock. I think it was like 8.3 kilos or 8.250 or something. It was a very big fish, and so surprisingly that it took that big bait, but it was a super hard bite. So sometimes they don't care about size.
They can really pull.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it actually pulled a lot of line from the gear that I was using for big cod and halibut, and that is like at least 7-8 kilos of drag, and it was ripping line off the reel. So I thought it was a good fish from a halibut or a cod or something, but turned out to be a very big Pollock instead.
Shit. Actually, in the early summer, if you go fishing like late in the evening, right after sundown, when you get to the dusk, especially if you have a rising tide, you can find them in shallows and catch them on topwater plugs. And walk the dog and stuff like that. Super cool fishing on light tackle. So use up to like a 30 gram rod, like a perch rod or something like that, and 7 to 10 gram floating stick baits. And also, they take poppers, but usually poppers that are not too violent, not a big sploosh, just a little splashy ones. And especially that, and walk the dog with floating stick baits at or early morning also works well. But they don't like the light. Generally, it's not very good in sunlight.
Yeah.
But if it's early morning before the sun comes up, or late at night in early summertime, it can be magic. I've caught fish up to like 5.5 kilos on
Cool.
5 to 15 gram rod and 4 gram stick bait. It's super cool, like tackle fishing.
Nice. That's cool.
So it's about as good as it gets for our home waters, I would say, that kind of fishing. Especially
cool.
That big splash you get, when they take it in the dark and you just you're like, fuck, and then you take off.
You have no idea what's happening in the dark.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I know.
So
I know the feeling.
It's a big rush to do it. So highly recommended.
All right. Okay, we got a new question. Johan Mortensson. Hey guys, what gear and rigging for the big ur? All right, an ur, that's like the rose fish or the redfish, the deep living species.
Yeah, have one here.
Maybe Eric should give a
if
quick
I
answer on that
scooch
one.
over a little bit. Here we have one.
That's the fish.
That is the fish, yeah, for sure. And well, for gear,
how did it caught it?
Well, that one was actually caught on very deep water, like 398 meters. But I was still using the same type of rod that we use for halibut and cod, but I had thinner line on my reel. So I was using the V4 that Johan was talking about in 20 to 30 gram range. I used a lever drag reel, but I used 0.23 millimeters instead to get less friction in the drift, to get my bait straight down instead of drifting away with the current. And as a rig, it's very, very simple. I tie like a paternoster rig with like 3 or 4 hooks on top with small circle hooks, 8/0 or small, but like 8/0s or 10/0s, which we rig with mackerel or coalfish fillet, or very small coalfish. This fish over here was actually caught on like 10 centimeter coalfish, which was whole, which I only rigged on a circle hook, 1 glowing bead and 1 small little like luminous tube, and 750 gram sinker all the way down to the bottom, and there it took. I actually have the hook here. Wait, hold on.
We are holding on. We are waiting for the hook.
Yes. Here we have the rig, and it's actually just it's camera there. Well, it's not that small actually, but it's a 10/0 circle hook, luminous tube with a small luminous squid, and it's a bead inside here so it won't slide down too. But that is basically the rig, and this is just mounted on like 1.2 millimeters monofilament line to avoid any tangles. And fishing for big redfish is actually not about the tackle that much. It's more about finding the right spots, the right bottoms, the right areas where these big fish hang around. And you should try to hit hard bottom. You should try to find corals, normally on a very deep ledge, going from, the ideal would be from 100 meters and to infinity, and just on the ledge there, normally between 200 and 400 meters, you will encounter them.
Yeah.
And it's quite important to have a good sonar so you can actually see the individual fish or at least a school of fish down there. And in my opinion, when you target a big redfish, you won't find a school that is very visible on the sonar, but sometimes you can get indications on the sonar that you have 1 or 2 or 3 fish down there. You just see a small sign on the sonar, but that is how you target the big ones. If you want just to have a lot of redfish to eat, like these standard size 1 to 2.5 kilos, then you should go and find a big school of fish that's standing outside the ledge. But if you want a really big one, you should go definitely deeper. I would say at least 200, but no problem to go down 300 to 400 meters and try to target single fish instead of a big school. And don't be afraid to use quite a lot of bait on your hooks, because they are not picky. The mouth is really big, and well, they don't see very well down there. So fresh bait, smelly bait is very good. I change my bait quite often, but the rig is not very hard. It's just to find the fish that is hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. What about you, John? You have caught some big redfish as well.
Oh yes, but it's basically the same setup. And as you said, you're finding some rocky bottom or some corals, and those steep ledges. So now it's really straightforward. It's exactly the same setup as you're using. So some guys prefer the J hooks. Some guys prefer the circle hooks. It works both. I probably prefer the circle hooks as well. Not with too thick shank, but no, circle hooks is very good. So no, I hope Johan Mortensson feels happy with the answer, and with the lure and the tackle of and the rigging of the lure, the redfish. Hello, Paul.
Hey, Paul. So,
right.
Favorite species you've been lucky enough to catch? Oh my God, that is so hard.
Oh yeah, that's a hard one, but
that's almost like the how many species question.
Yeah, almost. But if I would choose only one fish that gives me thrills and fear and excitement, it would be a dogtooth tuna. There is nothing that beats the bite and the first initial run of a big dogtooth tuna. They are horrible in the same way as fantastic.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Hard to tell. Really, really hard to tell.
Okay, shall you start, Johan?
Yeah, I can try, but it's difficult. I mean, as you were saying, the doggies are violent. GTs on top water. It's also quite entertaining.
Yeah.
But in the long run, if I would have to have a gun to my head and choose a fish, I would say bonefish, actually.
Oh,
shallow water bonefish on a fly rod.
That's nice.
Just because it's very tactical fishing. You have to know the tides, you have to know the areas, channels, how the fish work, how they move about, and also they're finicky and spooky. So it's in the long run, it's more challenging than catching something big and violent. So yeah, I would say it's the trout of salt water, kind of.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah.
All right.
That's my definite answer.
Nice. All right. I really try to think hard here about what my favorite species you have been lucky enough to catch. I mean, I got some special species that I've been lucky enough to catch. For example, like the monkfish, the sea devil, like very rare species of fish, and I caught 2 of them. But my favorite species, it's a hard one, but maybe like the blue marlin, for example. It took me weeks and ages before I caught my first blue marlin. And guys, seriously, I was in tears when I caught my first blue marlin. And it's all the time and effort you put into the fishing, and then you finally catch it, And so I guess that fish was probably one of my, top fish. But for now, when I've caught it, I'm normally more the hands-on ones, popping GTs or jigging hard for dog-tooth tunas and such fish. But my personal one is probably the blue marlin, 1,064 pound, or my first blue marlin, for the sake.
Fantastic.
Yes, you got a lot of fishing stories, so it's hard to choose which one.
There are so many.
Yeah, there are so many, and time is flying. I think.
Oh wow!
That was probably the last question of the day.
Really? I thought we had started.
Yeah, me too.
Wow, that was 1 hour just flew by.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this live show, and feel free to share it with all your friends that couldn't make it this hour, because it will still be there for everybody to listen and watch again if they want.
Exactly.
And if you have further questions, just write to us.
We will answer all of them. So
just write a personal message or leave
just reach out.
So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and have a great evening. Thank you.
Enjoy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye for now.
Over and out. What now? Shall I push something?